So within the self-contained villages, travel was to the minimum. And if you went from one village to the other, you were supposed to ask your way around and communicate to that village what broadcast does today. Or you have not heard about it? And you sit down under the tree. Communication was so essential in the human form that it was assumed that signages are for cold people in impersonal societies, which is actually a fact in the West. So even every little fault that you see in our civilization can be explained with reference to the context. With reference to the context. So every communication has also to be built on the context. You cannot get on to a sacred site and trample upon with your shoes. It doesn't matter whether you're a Hindu or a Muslim or anything. People beat you up. Actually, I've got beaten up once in a while. I used to do my research and trample over graves I didn't understand or over a holy spot because I didn't understand the context. Now, this is the broad ecosystem of communication that I've mentioned. I hope I haven't complicated it unnecessarily. There is no question of inferiority and superiority of culture. As a trained anthropologist, let me tell you, all cultures are superior as long as they perform the functions for which that duty, that thought came in. If the Westerns never use their fingers, why don't you try using it now at 2.7 degrees? You'd much rather eat with a spoon. You'd much rather eat with a spoon. And if you had sub-zero, forget water here. So they were not necessarily unclean if they didn't have the best toilet habits. And we were not necessarily cleaner because we had different habits. We had a different challenge, we gave a different response. They had a different challenge, they gave a different response. And anybody who thinks that another's culture is inferior, behind, backward, or something derogatory is out of his mind. That was true in that context. And now let's see how the Brits learned it all the way. When they came here, they would never go for dinner without a dinner jacket. Imagine wearing a woolen dinner jacket at 42 degrees. They soon changed in 100 years to Bermudas. So those contextual changes, because he was carrying his culture and his cultural baggage in his mind, that how can you ever go to dinner without a proper dress? And that you were sweating your way through was not very material. And then they later became very practical, coming to shorts and Bermudas and light t-shirts and Hawaii chappals. And so these are things that you learn as you move along. Now let me get on because I have to close. What would I put as the modes of communication? I've told you the background, the reservoir. I got taken into rigorous psycho things. A, direct, the way I'm speaking. Whatever 5%, 10% gets onto you. Another 5% comes through the hand, incidentally. 5 or 10% comes to the hand. About 20% comes from my mug, if you think. The second one I would put as amplified communication. It's not a direct communication, it's a larger communication. You're still seeing the person, but in an indirect manner. Let me give you an example. When Hitler would go to speak, this has been written so many times over, Hitler had a very unimpressive height. And he was not exactly handsome. And he had that horrible mush that Charlie Chaplin copied. He didn't have the best of voices either. How does such a man control the most sensible part of, one of the most sensible parts of the human race, the Germans? Demagogy. Let me explain. Before he goes up on the stage, first of all, the stage is something like 40 feet up. And from 20 to 40 feet is a white screen. At the bottom of 20 feet is a balcony. Below that, 5-10 feet below, is a bigger balcony. And beneath that is hanging the swastika flag. For the first 4 hours, you have German martial music on the second balcony, the lower balcony. And you've warmed up the audience, you've built up the context. And they keep saying how Germany has been deprived, like that crackpot in Hyderabad or somewhere. He grapes and rants, then comes speaker after speaker, who are better speakers than him, but there are on the second balcony raising the heat. And as the light dips, as sunset dips, the lights are on, footlights, baby lights, strobe lights, they're all on. Screen is white. And with the bang of martial music, with Roman trumpets, Hitler steps up. Tiny little fellow with lights all over him. He waves a little hand and it goes up 20 feet. He creates a psychic, imaginative, stirring speech. Gandhiji had his own way of handling things. He would decide that he talked a lot behind the screen, but on the screen, that means on the stage of the All India Congress, Indian National Congress, he used to speak less, let others speak. And to keep himself gainfully occupied, he didn't have a mobile set, he couldn't tweet, so he had to do something, charkha. Went on the charkha and made a useful utilization of his hours. And let us look at this piece of communication. Edwina Mountbatten, she walks on the stage and she is the Lard Sahib's wife, the Viceroy or the Vice Queen of India. The Congress leaders, this is 1947, who are all on stage in very simple Gandhian Gaddi, they jump up to greet, get up to greet, because A, they're conditioned that you should greet a lady by getting up, B, the Vice Queen is there, and she has taken the trouble to come. Gandhiji sees the hundreds and thousands of people who have looked upon him as the sole point of defiance of imperial authority. And he puts his hands up like this and shakes and said, "These awful knees, my dear, I hope you don't mind." What the crowd sees is that while everybody jumped, Gandhiji didn't get up. Part of Gandhi's persona was built around his clothes or the lack of them. Part of Tagore's persona was built upon his clothes and an excess of them. I can't imagine if we were around, I would have asked him how he carried that Iranian jubba, Persian jubba, which was normally made out of wool, through the Indian climes. He must have had a fan underneath. Whatever. So, communication, I've given you two examples. Subhash Bose would stir especially Bengali audiences with his military dress. Bengalis are normally not a very martial race. In fact, they didn't have too many cricketers either. They had one, they didn't want to leave him. So, and so we had a few generals, but it's not exactly noted to be producing. So a person coming up in that martial uniform to fill in that little gap made a lot of sense. Then there is another gentleman who's come up in his 3D avatar at different places of a western state in India. So we have different ways of communicating. So one was a direct, the second was a projected. The third and most important for us to remember is the distant, the media-related one. Our face-to-face communication, our little villages have broken down into virtual villages, where communication takes place not necessarily on a face-to-face basis, but on a Facebook-to-Facebook basis. We have now these, and no person can evade, avoid, or get away from it all. SMS, the most non-intrusive method of communication. You and I are sitting next to each other practically in the next room. We could talk, we could always pick up the phone, but we decide on a non-intrusive method, a non-claiming method of time to pass on the substance of what we are trying to say. We have collected it. So there's an SMS, email, I don't need to say, webcam, Skype and whatever my son and everybody's son keeps using. These require a different, not only a knowledge of them. Ladies and gentlemen, I think I'm one of the oldest in this hall. I should be the oldest practically. It's not a question of the skills. It is a question of acceptance, the recognition that we are no more going to walk along the village road, but onto the road, the highway that has been built for us. There is no escape. I remember one of my grandaunts would never take food kept in a fridge. Basi. Stale. Another would never use a pressure cooker. Should keep her dekchi with a grinding stone on top. All sorts of problems of adjustments. Another one went up on the lift and said, Bhagwan ne mujhe upar uthaya. It's all sorts of acceptance. Question is, how do you accept it? How to accept it? There is the road, there is no escape. So how do you accept it? I see the way the trends are moving. Now coming back to a little bit of profession. We have about 150 to 200 million persons coming on broadband. We have 950 million registered mobile users in a country of 1.2 billion. Active users would be 6.4 billion, 640 million. 640 million is just about half of India. But every sweeper, every person, every serviceman seems to be carrying on mobile, and they invariably get more calls than I ever do. Because whenever I ask them for a work, the phone is ringing. I don't know whether they're doing in horse trading or tips or whatever. I don't know what they do, but they seem to get. I mean, I also get my call. Mine one is in silent mode, but you find the less important you thought the man was, its phone is ringing all the time. They come up with all sorts of atrocious rings. Now, 950 million mobile sets, handsets, bring it down to 640, would be coming up back to what 800, forward to 800 active mobile sets in the next 2 years. Tablets. Tablet, I mean, I keep getting muddled because to me tablet still means the pill that you pop. But tablet of course means something different. Tablet prices have crashed in India, the land of copycats. You don't need to invent anything. All you need is to find how the other guy made it and make it cheaper. Jugaad technology. Well, soul of India. So on this you find tablet prices crashing. I just attended and presided over the International Broadcasting Union meeting. And when I mentioned $50, $35, they whistled. I said, yeah, we can do it. The basics are there. Because the Indian knows that you won't be using so many things. My first arrival in Delhi from Calcutta, 1984, freezing climate and no heater around. In comes a Sardar who does a lot of beating and then puts a rod in front of the blower of, and 10 minutes the air conditioner becomes a heater. Now, logi parchi sign karo, bas ho gaye. I mean, the ingenuity is mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. So with the tablet prices crashing and the mobiles becoming more frequent, what are we heading for? The first revolution in computing in India took place before many of our senior friends' eyes. I have seen the first computer in Jadavpur University. It's about the size of the stage with so many Godrej Almiras. And would be processing less than half of what my mobile can do. Then,
Honeywell computer.
Then came the punch card driven technologies, and the Indian jugaad mind use the waste punch card for bus tickets. Chala, 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 okay. We've seen that. And then let us travel fast, 85, 86, the PC comes. The PC becomes the most decorated furniture item in the room because none of us know how to use it. Come along with it comes a floppy, which is actually like a disk. You put it in, you finish the day's papers, it goes on like an ET from another world, blips, beeps, makes all sorts of squeaks. You have your toast, have your breakfast, and then it comes on DOS. What was DOS? Data operating systems. Disk operating systems. And then slowly, the computer becomes personal and things like that, and the PC becomes more from this, it becomes an addiction. All of us stop using, I'm talking to my male friends, they look at the emails more than they look at females, and it goes on like that. It goes on like that. It becomes an addiction, and then we suddenly find, again, we have come to a Chowmuhani, a chalk where we're all getting lost. The PC, the LCD projector, the big one that you have at home, the home theater, for that you need time. How do you get time? You're always on the move. So now comes the next phase when communication technology needs even broader and broader bandwidth, which India is working on very assiduously. It's like those highway systems that came up recently, with a rare degree of seriousness that I've found in my 37 years in government. And I can see the way it's moving. The second phase of the fixed TV, the fixed computer at home, the luxury of sitting and doing goes, and everything is going thump, 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 or tuck, 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 Android phones. We have to reach there. No customer who's spoiled for choices is going to look you up. You jolly well race after him like that little puppy in one of those ads. You race after him or her. Communication will henceforth be a race to the eyeballs. He who grabs the most would be grabbing the biggest part. There is no escape from it. All of us in exactly 3 to 5 years would be listening and looking at every form of formal communication on the handset. For the richer brats, it's going to be the tablet. And for the less rich people, it's going to be the mobile. The mobile turning around into a receiver set. FM, for instance, is available on the mobile. No other forms of radio are. I know the rest of radios, medium wave, short wave, they're not available. So we are also thinking in terms of moving on to what is called simulcasting. While we have short wave and medium wave and AM and FM for AM others, why not put a simultaneous location for an FM channel so that you can pick it up? Otherwise, I can't expect people to go and tune in to the Murphy radio or Burfi radio and see it. So communication's latest challenge is going to be, the effective challenge is going to be how to get there, not how much audience you have had. We have now 15 crore TV households, actually 15.4 or 5 by now. If you assume that 5 to a household, that becomes a lot. 750 million people watching it. 14 crores is the official estimate of TV radios. I would put it at around 11, out of which 6 would be FM, whatever it dish out. This is the way we are moving. Now, till today, while I'm talking, we have subscribers who plug in the system. IPTV is there. You're always on the move. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will conclude my rambling speech, or whatever you call it, by giving you a prognosis almost like Nostradamus that the way we are heading is to the mobile generation. Our generation was upwardly mobile, this generation is going to be mobile. That way. Our communication, if any, can hardly be on a face-to-face basis. That becomes a luxury. On a non-animated, non-active basis, that also becomes thing. It could actually be all on PowerPoints. Once you get in and instead of reading and using the chalk again and again, it's getting to be so. It's all possible, I can say it. And coming back, I would still mention the 3 mantras of communication. That would remain valid irrespective of whether we take the village road, the district road, the medium road, the highway or the superway. It's going to be text, subtext and context. Thank you very much.